Round 4. Okay. So budget. What we're doing in pre-construction and estimating, guys, is we're going through and we're loading these budgets. Notice how much cleaner this already looks with what it is and what the cost code is. These are all correct cost codes. The amounts all appear to, have made sense when they were originally loaded, and the budget has been locked. Until this budget originally gets locked, you don't see any budget modifications, and you likely don't see too much else going on at that point in time. It's kind of our initial upload. That is being done by pre-construction, and when you guys are going through that handover process, where they're giving you guys the job and you have the opportunity to go in and you guys are meeting on this stuff and you're saying, all right, what do you have for drafting? 16,500. How did you get to that number? Did somebody give you a quote? Is that an internal number? If so, how many hours were you figuring for that?
Justifying it.
It's your opportunity to basically shoot holes in our own internal estimate. Okay, so it's pretty cool. So when we lock this original budget amount, you guys will have had an opportunity as an ops team to go in and give your 2 cents, right? And this is what you're agreeing to basically run the job to at that point in time. And at that point, we lock the budget and we take snapshots. So there's a create snapshot budget here. So every snapshot that Kyle has taken will always be here. So when Diana loaded the budget, she took a snapshot. Then she updated the budget. Then she took a snapshot.
What do you mean by take a snapshot?
So like it's just like as if I were to save that version, okay, essentially. And then what happens is once the budget has been locked and it's up to us to manage, on a monthly basis, when we do our project review meeting, we go through, we update this whole budget, balance it out, and then we take a snapshot so that we can always at any point in time go back to last month and look and see, hey, what did we think it was going to be and what's changed?
Where can you view the snapshots? Just in that drop
in this little drop down right here. Yep. So if I wanted to go back to the one he took the last month's PCS meeting, you'll see what's cool is, so basically we follow this all the way across. So just like those change events on that ledger, you had essentially your entitlement on one side and your costs on the other side. The budget works exactly the same way. So we have, what was our original budget amount? Have we made any modifications? Modifications are where we are moving money from one line item to the next. And those only take place by the ops PMs. And that's what's being really reviewed on a month-to-month basis with Kevin and accounting. And they're saying, all right, what'd you move this month and why? Right. You can see any approved PCCOs that have been made on the project to date, and it gives us a revised budget number, which is what we would currently be working towards as far as an entitlement goes. Anytime you want to see how these numbers are being calculated, you can just hover over the top right here. Then you can also see what costs have been committed against those line items. If I want to, you notice it's a hyperlink. I can open this up and I can see every single purchase order or subcontract that had been issued associated with that cost code. So these I don't mind. It is what it is. Looks like they've gone through a couple of different drafters on this project, and they had written out individual, like frankly, too many commitments to DKD.
Yes,
I would suggest that you write one commitment to
It's change.
TKD and keep change ordering them. Boom, 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 boom. Just
Right,
always
right.
change order 'em.
literally what I was doing for my Princeton projects, as time steel was taking out some of the DKD's scope, Fence
Yeah.
was taking it over, so. Subtract from the DKD, populate, Fence steel,
Yep. That's how you want to do it. And then it becomes a little cleaner. Because then you'll just be able to see the commitment and then all of the change orders. So
it's good for accounting too, right?
it's cleaner. It's so much cleaner because then when you're looking at it at this elevated view here, you don't have to jump into all the details. It's like, okay, I got one line item for cubes for this monumental structure. If I go in, it'd be great to only see cubes in here. Again, looks like, okay, well, these are the change orders here. That was the original contract, and these are all the change orders that have been written in cubes.
This is instance where it's correct, or?
Yeah, so they would have been commitment 10, change order 1, commitment 10, change order 2, commitment 10, change order 3. So just, yeah, they're following the appropriate numeration that we had talked about there. And this was their original schedule of values, that's all. So, I'm not sure why those would have been listed as 0 items in their original SOV, but I didn't mind thinking. So that's what this column then does for us. This column, ERP commitments invoiced, basically is reading the accounting software and telling us how much they've actually invoiced us on those jobs. And that's populating through automatically. Notice though, on this one, I'm not going to get any detail out of that. I can't see how many different invoices they've sent us to equal that 121. But at least I can see the total value.
Is that just a scheduled value thing to set up?
That is, so we can actually write a plugin to view that level of detail for it, but it's a limit, again, it's another limitation of the accounting software. Whereas if we had like Sage, it would automatically populate and we wouldn't have to write a plugin for all of that information to push over, and you'd be able to see the detail in that line item. The only 2 line items that you're not going to be able to see detail on here through these 2 hyperlinks are going to be your ERP commitments invoiced and your job cost to date. Moving forward, when I show you a little bit more about invoicing here in a minute, that will end up starting to populate if our vendors are invoicing us through Procore, which is, we're going to get there one day. We're just not there yet.
Yeah.
So right now, if you wanted to know makeup of all of those invoices that we've received from them today, you would actually then have to request your project account to run you that report. Or go into Spectre and run it yourself, but want to stay out of it, then just ask them to do it. Job cost to date's exactly the same way. I can't see that detail here. Well, I know it's all in that one commitment, but your job cost to dates are also going to populate any of your labor line items or any miscellaneous materials, travel, anything like that. So things that you don't have a commitment for, those are going to come through, and you're going to be able to see those as a direct cost. So your ERP commitments plus your direct cost equal your job cost to date. Okay. Then we have our projected costs. So our projected costs are going to be committed plus direct plus pending. So there's one thing that's a little tricky when it comes to this. If you do not have a commitment written and somebody pays let's just say a drafter, for example, you never wrote them a $5,000 commitment, but you worked outside of the system, you told them to go, we got a bill from them, and then we paid them $5,000. Well, the way this is calculating out, it's not capturing that ERP commitment invoiced. It's capturing your committed cost, right? So if you didn't write the commitment, this number, your projected cost is going to be less than your cost to date. That's why it's super important. And accounting has tried to put a stop to this, but every once in a while, I still see one sneak through where somebody didn't write a commitment, and then our job costs to date exceed our projected costs, which in theory, you can never have that happen, right?
Yeah.
It's always going to be at least the same. So that's one thing that we're looking out for, trying to avoid. But as long as you guys are doing your commitments and your change orders and everything, it's fine. Now here's our forecast column. So these are forecasts of costs that have not yet been committed. So if we haven't written commitment to a subcontractor, but we know we need to on that line item, you would go in here in your forecast and say, I need to still write somebody this change order, or I need to write somebody this contract. And so you go into these individual line items and you actually just put in your description, what it is, what those costs are that you still need to purchase. And it essentially kind of creates a buyout log for you at the same time. So also very important to do these cost forecasts. And you guys aren't going to be doing these alone. It will take seeing this a month or two before you're actually comfortable with it. So whoever you're working with, you'll go through this a couple of times. And in that PCS meeting, we basically go through and we review these forecasts to just all like collectively go, is there anything that you're forgetting about that you're not forecasting? Or I see you forecasted $100,000 for this, but we're also probably going to submit a change order request for that $100,000. So don't forecast it as a cost because we're going to be reimbursed for it. So those are the kind of questions that come out of those meetings when we're talking about it. And then you get your estimated cost of completion, which is your projected cost plus your forecasted costs. You'll notice here, nice and clean, because this was snapshotted right after the meeting. We have nothing over and under, like very, very clean, right? Well, if I go and I want to view current budget, he will not have balanced his budget for the month yet, I guess. I don't know. I'll kind of balances his budget every day, which is like a work, yeah. I want to see an example. Okay, cool. So here we can see these projected over-unders are now starting to populate for him. So he has basically overestimated his costs above and beyond what we had in our budget. What we had in our revised budget. So it is going to now say, I'm $1,034 short on this line item. You have to give me that money from somewhere. So everything is into contingency, out of contingency, in, out, in, out. So I know I have to do a budget modification and pull $1,034 from my contingency to cover this line item. And that's how we back check every month to make sure that we've projected enough money to get that job done.
And if we're under over with 34,000.
So under 34 is great problem to have, right? Because yeah, I have to do a modification, but has he gone through and in here, you'll see in that forecast, has he really forecasted out everything that he needs to? Okay, he's only projecting out to 6/1/24 right now. He's got 15 months remaining for him. He's charging 90% of his time to this job currently. So he's basically using this monitored resource area in here to project out what that forecasted cost is going to be. So that's great for the general conditions thing to use that. On the other line items, like the millwork here, he's using this manual entry here and putting 480 hours at 6250. Think about
Because
the
that's what
monitor,
people are quoting by the bill, people are saying, hey, this is.
or that's like kind of this, ROM on it,
Okay.
if you will. So using monitored resources for internal in-house labor items is kind of the way to go. And manual entry and put in line items here.
That's awful clean at 30,000. It was it enough?
It's awful clean.
Now.
It's awful clean,
And,
yeah.
and they were like, about 480 hours, so the unit cost was direct from.
And that may be one of the kind of things that like somebody else is gonna question, right? Like Tyler or Casey may question, okay, explain to me what this really means here in that forecast. And so the process every month will be go through, make sure that anything, needs to be done. You move those money around with those budget modifications. And then we can snapshot it at the end of the day. And it gives you your updated contingency for the month. And we very, very, very seldom ever move our CM number because we have contingencies to pull everything from. As soon as that contingency runs in the red, then you gotta pull it from your CM. But that's when all the sirens start going off around here. Is if anybody touches that CM.
Where does it show the contingency?
Contingency right here, he's got $606,000 sitting in contingency right now.
Okay.
So I can tell right now, I can go in here. I can quickly just move this column to this column. I want to see his total delta. So it looks like he's running 37,000 over right now. That he did dollar for dollar, moved everything around. That 37,000 would get added to that contingency for this month because of that big excess right there. And it looks like he's probably got a couple more up here. Yeah, he's got 2,500 there. So that's kind of the monthly process with that. What we also do, and I'm going to, we like to let this one just hang out and do a manual entry of 0. So that if you're ever looking at this, this is really your fee, always over here. Their CM is the only thing that we leave out in the under column. We forecast all of our contingency of the cost of the job. As you get towards the end of a job and you're starting to feel really comfortable, like I don't have any surprises coming my way, then we can start to make the decision on do we move some of that contingency into our contribution margin. And we start letting that kind of trickle into CM. Obviously, we do not want to, the very last month of the project, move $600,000 of contingency into fee. Yeah, it's a good problem, but what you end up having with your outside banking partners and bonding partners go is big swings like that. They go, well, you didn't know what you were doing in managing the project the entire course of it. Right. So they want to, so that's really what Mike's looking at from a CFO level. And he's like, all right, we need to start taking some of this and moving it around so that maybe we have 4 months of $150,000 creeps instead of one big $600,000 thing. So this is kind of what our budget page looks like. A couple other things here. You always want to be in this ERP budget view. It will give you an option for another one, but we want ERP budget view. What we can also do is we can tier this. So if we wanted to go in and pick a cost code tier.
Yeah, so what does the tiers mean?
So what I'm going to do here, so like I'll add a group of cost code tier 1. And now what it's going to do is it's going to give me a summary of all my 105 items.
Okay.
Right? Just which I didn't have there before. It was just straight rundown. So I can kind of look at things by grouping now, basically. So if I wanted to move this to 2,
So that's basically just how granular it gets, or?
it's just how you're viewing the data. It's just giving you these roll ups. So now if I want to go back to drafting and engineering, all of my 105 100s are being tallied up here. My 105 200s.
Because that comes up when you're doing like a schedule of value, right? Because before I was doing a commitment and I was inputting a schedule of value, I was doing its own commitment separate of a change order, but then I was told, hey, no, this needs to go to a change order. So I basically undo all the schedule of values, but they had the different tiers. I didn't know what to put under. So if I wanted to do fabric, it was getting for Fem Steel doing like fabrication drawings, you know, that would that be like a tier 1, or because I've had like fabrication of the stringers versus fabrication of the treads, you know, I don't.
No, that's gonna be it. That's not gonna be tiering here. So all of that is what it's trying to do probably on the schedule of values, where I think where you were at was where I was kind of saying new line item, same as 1.
Okay.
One, I'd have to be looking at it with you
Yeah.
exactly where you were, but I think that's where you were at on that. The only place you're really tiering anything here is just to, it's not gonna change any of these numbers. If I look at cost code tier 1 here and I just group it, it's just giving me a summary of that whole 105 section. And it's just adding them up for me. So I can just, if I just wanted to isolate and look at like total installation on the job, it's just giving me now a sum of all of this group of numbers. That's it. So it can be helpful when you're looking at certain things. How much money did we spend on drafting overall on a project? If you had 5 different drafting line items, it would add all 5 of them up for you if you wanted to see that. Forecasting. So it's a little different than this forecasting that we did in this column. Forecast of costs not yet committed. This is actually projected cost forecast for the entire project based off of timing. So what we do is we go in here, all the same budget descriptions are going to populate here. Then what we're going to see is a start date, an end date, and a curve that we want to apply. So what we're doing is we're taking all of our cost left to complete on a job, and we are forecasting it out by month. And so the reason why we want to do this is you can see right now, I was forecasting all of these costs for March, $758,000. I can look back at that and go, did I meet it? Or was I missing any major sub invoices to me for the month? If I only ended up at $500,000 in costs for March and I was projecting 758, we got a problem. Like I've been missing something. But what's really neat about this is you basically take your dates and you apply those. And so it's smart enough to know if I started this on 11/1 and I ended on 6/30 and I wanted a linear curve, so just meaning that it was going to apply, it divided it by 7, right? It will automatically just populate all these numbers over here. So you don't have to mess with doing any of the actual calculations. You just say, is it a bell curve? Am I going to build more in the middle, less at the beginning, less at the end? And is it going to be front loaded? Am I going to try to build it out, proportionally? And those are really your options here. I mean, you can also have a manual. You have, if you actually wanted to go in and plug it in manually, do that as well. if you do manual, it's going to be a little bit more work for you. And most of the time, you can pick one of these curves that's already there. Let the system do the work for you. And then you can always go in and make these edits in line too. If you wanted to edit them here, it'll make the calculations automatically work out for what's left to complete for you. So again, after you do one or two of these, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's pretty easy. And the next month, so long as the dates don't change, it automatically calculates everything else out for you. If you have to change a date, so be it, it'll run it out. So that is pretty cool. Then what we also have now is this app that we have built into Procore that we look at during these monthly meetings. So what we've done is we have taken these API points, any piece of data that we have inside of Procore, that we have inside of Spectrum, that we have inside of Salesforce, any software really has an API that we can go in and grab that data and manipulate it into different tables, different charts. So what we've done is we've created this summary. So right now I'm on all projects. So let's just go and pick that one Ford project we were just looking at. And this basically gives me a roll-up summary of everything that's going on financially on the job. I can see all the same stuff we were just looking at on the budget in one line item. I can quickly see what our handover contingency was at the time that the job got passed off from operations to, or from pre-con to operations. And I can see that we're down. So that 606 number that we were looking at is actually less than what it got handed over at. I can see what's changed with my contribution margin. Like I said, this number is really going to change through change orders. I don't normally add to it or take it away unless it comes from the PCCOs. Cash flow on the job, how much we've paid out, how much we've received today, what our net cash flow is, and what our free cash flow is. There's between a net cash flow and a free cash flow. This is probably all sitting in accounts payable right now, this delta. We have a backup page with a little bit more detail on that. And then just kind of summary roll-ups of all of our change orders today. So this is like a one-page, one-stop shop for anything going on project financials. When we get into these other tabs down here, it's a little bit more detailed. So I need to pick my last snapshot. Well, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare from my snapshot of last month's meeting to current to today, and I can see exactly what is different. So what we're trying to do is in those meetings, reduce the amount of time we're spending in there, and let's just focus on what's changed. We don't have to talk about the same thing over and over and over again from last month unless something is different, right? And so that's what this is doing, is it's pulling in those deltas between current and last month's snapshot. Then the other thing we're doing is trying to capture cash flow. So anything, this is just a quick summary of job costs by month on the job. You can see all of our billings by month and then what we're going to have outstanding in 30, 60, 90. You know, this is just, these visual aids are just so that we can talk about these topics quick. If anything just looks out of whack, then we know that we should dive in, right? This is just summaries of all of your various change events. You can go in and you can filter those if you wanted to here by just ending in progress if you wanted. Get a quick snapshot on that. You can look at them all. It's going to populate them all over here. Right now we only had 2 statuses on this job. We either have pending or we have pending in progress. We have $235,000 in pending in progress, which is kind of a lot. I mean, that's a talking point. And here's how those all add up. So essentially, those are risks that we're trying to discuss at that point. So here, remember when I had mentioned to you before whether or not something was executed or not? And here's where that comes into play. So I can see out of all these change orders that are in here right now, we're saying only 2 of them actually have been executed. Whereas we have received all of these, and maybe they just never clicked the box that it had been executed or not. Well, these I know they wouldn't be because those are still in draft. But if we have one approved and we don't have the executed clicked, we're just doing a back check. Why not? So, and that's why these populate over here on this side. Commitment change orders by vendor. It's kind of sometimes interesting to just look at these, because what we're going to start to do is some predictive analytics stuff where we're looking at like DKD. We can see, oh my God, they've got $46,800 in change orders on this project. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to look at them company-wide. I'm going to select all. And then I'm going to really start to see like some trends with these people. Like, we got over $2 million in change orders with this subcontractor on one project. Is that because we're getting ticketed to death, or is that because it was just truly one major change order? Yeah, right. So,
Well, normally for those, it's normally if it's like the supplier, they give you samples. The original contract amount was just for the sample, then that sample was approved, and like, okay.
That could also be potentially what was happening.
Okay.
This particular sub, it's a combination of a lot of things.
Sure.
But I also do know that they are pretty ticket happy. So basically, this is just kind of a summary of all of those different tools that we looked at inside of Procore. This one's kind of fun. No, we don't want to do it all. So on here, you can see basically nothing existed until this point, and how we've been tracking on our contingency month to month, and how we are tracking on our CM month to month. And then we also have project supervision. I'm in the process of having this changed the next time you look at this sheet. So instead of cumulative across the board, all you're going to see here is $524 for this one month that it hit. Because right now it's just, you can see nothing else is hit, but I don't love that visual. So we're going to change that because this is cumulative down here too. I'd rather just see the cumulative up here in these 2 boxes and then actually see how much you're spending each month. On project management. So I don't know, we're doing some fun stuff with the data, and that's why it's so important to get things in right, so that we can do the reviews quickly and we can then start doing some like overall company-wide forecasting and figure out what we're doing good, what we're doing bad. And
Next week, do we have these monthly costs, or is it the following week?
Let's see what else. Okay, so invoicing. We'll do that quickly. So I did just do a half-hour invoicing training, and this is only on our prime contracts, like a couple weeks ago. So it's a video that you guys probably got assigned, so I'm not going to spend too much time with it. But I'll just show you quickly the gist of it. Main contract, get my invoices. I am going to go into this one that's currently a draft. So the very first one is going to be based off of your schedule of values, and it's going to automatically populate. So you don't have to do 200 line items of data entry all over again, which is kind of nice. I'm just going to go into the most recent draft version that he's got open right now. Yeah, so this is what it's similar to the G702 roll up. So it may not look like it on this page exactly, but if you go to export this to a PDF, it looks pretty darn close. Almost like copy. There you go. Right. So.
Totally different.
That changed the font.
Right. So you can see that's going to be our roll-up page. So, but where all the work is actually being done is in the detail. Everything on that summary page is auto-populating. All right. On this detail section, it actually gives us the option to go ahead and like change retainage on all line items very quickly. We can release it very quickly. I'm gonna hide this sidebar real quick and I'm gonna edit this. And so if I were going in on here this month to bill anything, if there was anything for this period, all I'm doing is I'm going and opening this up. I'm putting in my total completed and stored to date, and I hit save and next entry. I just go down, it does all the math for us. And what's even better is that it takes this period, and so the next time you open it up, it automatically pulls it over to the previous application for you. So all you ever have to do is go in and hit these little calculators, put in your percent complete, and it does everything else for you. So, I mean, for Ford, this is 200, maybe not quite 200, but there's 148 different line items in the schedule of values. Kyle said that it has saved him. He said it's been taking him a quarter of the time to do a bill inside of Procore than it used to doing it in a spreadsheet. So
That's awesome.
that's a big save. Now, one thing you'll know, or you should know on this is that these change orders are automatically trying to be applied here. So you can see PCC01, PCC02, 3. As soon as they're approved, it wants to try to pull them into this bill. All right. Looks like he's already started applying a percentage maybe on that one, but I'd have to pull these out here if I didn't want them pulled up. And delete this change order. I'm going to do this and I'm going to save this. But now it puts it down here for me, and then I can just add it back in. So if it sees like another change order for you, it's automatically going to ask you, hey, do you want to add this? It wants to add them on its own first. The other thing is, even though we're doing, that's one of those change orders, and we say we want to do new line item, same as above. Here's the example of that. The new line item is 145. Because I clicked same as above on others, it's grouping those all into 145 and doing a separate number. If I hadn't and I did new line item for each one, I was gonna end up, this would be 146, this would be 147, 148, etc. And then I wouldn't be able to just roll them up like that. Now I still do have to go in and actually put the percent complete in for each one of these line items. But I at least can roll it back up so that the client doesn't see that level of detail when I, export it to a PDF and send it out. So that's That's kind of our new billing process. And then we basically take this and so we'll do our pencil rec, if you will. Create it as the project management team. And then we just, then we just email this over to Giselle. And then she takes it and submits it to the GC for us, because most times they have a different payment application portal. Trexpera has been being used by a lot of folks. And so she'll basically take this, she'll convert it into a CSV file so she can copy and just paste it into Trexpera and send it out to the GC. And then she'll come in here and she'll change your status from draft to approved when the GC gets back to her, or she will come back to you and say, hey, they redlined this. We need to go in and edit it. Sometimes if she's got the time, she'll just kind of go in and say, hey, do you want me to edit this for you to match, or do you agree with it? Or you guys take it back, go in and do the edits yourself, and then re-email it to her. So that's pretty much the payout process. She'll take care of doing the lien waivers and everything else that are going to be associated with that payout. So it works out pretty good. We're not, like I said, we're not doing subcontractor invoices in the system yet, so nothing to really show you there. And I think that was kind of a long intro to financial management, what the tools look like, how we're using them here. Again, some of the stuff is going to take you a month or two to really be comfortable with. But the goal really was to have one software that we could do everything that we needed to do in it. And I think this, for the most part, accomplishes that goal. So if you're doing anything outside of here, generally that's not the way that we want it to be done.
Sure.
Obviously, the exception to that is your working documents, right? Just reporting. You guys just let me know if come across anything, have any questions. Everybody else is starting to get pretty good with this too. More so than others, but they'll learn at different paces.